we'll just start. The first person, you don't see the name only because of the way it's been cut out of the DVD, but that's Paul Dawkins, a well-known reggae artist, both in a band called Tradition and his own group. So his group was called Tradition, and also as a solo artist. So,
okay, before we do that, maybe we introduce the session first.
Please, Ambrose, go ahead.
So, welcome everyone. Welcome to this event where we are meeting Kwaku, and we are talking about the project that Kwaku led, which looked at Brent Black music history. Tonight's session is a continuation from one that we had a couple of months ago. So this is a follow-up to that. For the session today, we are going to watch a number of videos from the DVD that Kwaku produced, and then we'll have a conversation and a discussion. Over to you, Kwaku.
Yeah, that sounds good, Ambrose. Thanks a lot. Thank you for reminding me for us to do that. Yeah, I'll just so focus on getting the videos out today. So cool. So as I said, this the first one. You don't see the name only because, Ambrose, because you're a co-host, if you can also admit, I think one person is coming. Great. So, yeah, so a few artists talking about different aspects of Brent. So here we go.
That Bob Marley's in Musium. I said, you've got to be joking. So I went down to Brinsley's house and Delroy Washington was there and he said, look, come on, I'll take you guys round. And it was really nervous to know that these guys were there. So when we actually went into the house, I didn't believe that he was there at first. When we went into the house, there was Bob Marley and he greeted all of us as being known us for ages. Peter Tosh was there, Bonnie Whaler, Family Man, and the whole group. They actually lived in the house for, I think, about 6 months, maybe more, to a year, they were there. So on knowing that we're there, me and Brinsley used to find ourselves down there now. We didn't without Delroy. We had to go just to be in that, around that man to say, well listen, we know Bob Marley. I mean, we used to be jamming downstairs on one particular day we were jamming and Bob Marley's upstairs sleeping. And we was playing away and he actually came downstairs with his guitar and plugged it in and started to play with us. And to me that was one of the greatest times for me and Brinsley.
My name is Delroy Washington. I was possibly the first Rastafarian or black music singer from this borough. We had a major recording contract. Yeah, I was signed initially to CBS Records back in the days with Bob Marley and the Wailers. And then I moved, when Bob moved to Island Records, I eventually went there and I was signed to them, you know, for a couple of records and an album. Never quite did it because they weren't really moving fast enough. So I went over to Virgin, and basically then I became their first major UK black signing. There aren't enough venues. I mean, like I said, the only venue around here, the most famous venue, well, again, was owned by the Palmer brothers. Jeffrey, and it's probably the longest going club in the UK today. In London, at any rate, there's a black club, which is the Apollo up the road. So that was really the place where most people used to go to. I mean, we used to have like a regular Saturday night blues session down at Denzil Road, but we used to have dances, there used to be more parties and sound systems running at the time. And really it was all about house parties as opposed to clubs. I actually took drumming out of school, got him his first drum kit. You know what I'm saying? So drumming effectively was a part of my band, not a member of Aswad, because Aswad, like I said, came later on. You know what I'm saying? And it was Brinsley who came and asked me if Drummer could actually come and, you know, do some stuff with him. And Drummer was really young at the time. Drummer was about 15, 16. You know what I'm saying? So I'd like to really just set the record straight. That basically, and again, had I not been there, Aswad might not have come about. A lot of people around the area that have made good with music, particularly black music. I mean, you got people like Carl Douglas. I don't know if anybody's talked to Carl Douglas, but you got people like Carl Douglas, there's Osibisa, a whole range of different groups. I mean, people like some of the members from Aswad came from around here. You got people like Phil Fearon and Galaxy, High Tension. All people I've actually had something to do with working with back in the days. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like I said, black music this is the unofficial black music capital of UK, I'd say, because there's so much talent. I mean, I can't even remember some of them just straight off, but there've been so many people, you know, that have done stuff in the UK, you know, Brent community, that, you know, we need an encyclopedia.
This gentleman is Teddy Osei, leader and founder of OCBSA. Black activity actually started with ska, reggae, in terms of music, you know, and then eventually OCBSA came in 1969 and also start to build up the African influence. And also the culture influence, because OCBSA came in with wearing the African clothes, you know, bandana, you know, and all that. That to portray the culture and the music, you know. And I remember the first time OCBSA went on TV, Top of the Pops, we wore all the African clothes, whereas others were wearing shoes, you know. So. The next time we at our performance, we saw a lot of people wearing African clothes, which gave us a lot of pleasure.
Tell me a little bit about the Courtney Pine connection, because I know he mentioned you guys, and indeed he said that's why he created that song, which was on his last album.
Well, the early days, when Frank Tonto and Courtney Pine, they were in the same school. I would say they were in the same class in Kingsbury High. They became very good friends, and Frank used to bring Courtney to his Mark Tonto, that is Frank's dad, to the house in Fairfields Crescent, and you know, I mean, they were listening to CivicLeicester music. You know, they had pianos and horns and everything. They used to come there, and so they got inspiration. And you know, we also directed them, you know, if they want to get into music, what to do, and you know, a good old advice that we have to give them. And from then on, you know, they became good.
Hello, my name's Roger St Pierre. I'm a music journalist and broadcaster, and many years ago I used to work for a company in Brent called Beacon Records, who were based in Willesden High Road, at the back of a woodyard in a building called Beacon House, which sounds quite grand, but it actually had a tin roof, so when it rained we couldn't work very well. One of the first independent black music labels, and it was black owned by a guy called Milton Samuel, who came from Antigua and produced a few records for Decca, and then decided to set up his own record label. It was open house policy, really, at Beacon. People used to walk in off the street. I remember Ram John Holder appeared one day, pork pie from Desmond's fame, but in those days, an R&B singer working the clubs. People don't realise that the Ram Jam band that Juno Washington led had originally been his band, and he recorded an album for us called Black London Blues, which I still think is one of the best albums ever. I don't know where you get a copy from now. I think we sold a couple of hundred. But we had other people. Root and Jenny Jackson came down from up north. I think they were from Huddersfield or Leeds, somewhere like that. They had a manager called Danny. He brought them down. They signed with Beacon Records. We don't get the credit, really. I mean, people talk about the Motown sound of Detroit. They talk about Memphis and the Memphis beat. What about the Brent sound? Because I suppose it's not so identifiable because it covered a wide range of music, but some really good black music that really stands up against what was being produced in America. I think we don't give ourselves enough credit for the contribution that this country and its musicians have made. And it's not just a matter of musicians who were born and worked here. It was immigrants. It was people from Jamaica, of course, but also American GIs who decided to stay here, and a lot of Americans who came here just purely to record.
Hello, my name is Ruth Jackson, musician, songwriter, singer, and director of Congo Music Publishing and Record Company. I've always had a long relationship with Brent from the first time I moved down from the north, which was Huddersfield, and got my first record deal in London as a duo called Ruth and Jenny Jackson. The company that we signed to was based in Wilden High Road, just at the junction by the traffic lights with Dutton Hill Lane. A company called Beacon Records, which is owned by a black Antiguan who lived in America for a while, and I was very excited because to see a black person actually wanting to sign us, and the kind of music we were doing, which was like Caribbean soul, with a very UK twist to it. And he actually saw that and signed us up. That happened in about 1968. We signed the deal. And we moved down to London after we recorded the first single, which did pretty well for the company.
Tell me some of the developments that came out of the BMI or BMA being in this era. I know one of the most famous outcome is Alma, but Alma was on the Congo, which was working side by side with those organizations. So tell us a bit more about that aspect.
Well, BMA started off with myself and Byron Lifehook, Gaspar Lawal, Kofi Daku, and there's loads of other people, Charles Eastman, KK Van Leer. That's what we developed to the BMA, learning about the business side, bringing in the people like the PRS, the PPL, the MCPS, having seminars with those people so that they can explain to the members, our members, what the business is about. And that's what really fired me up to set up the BMA, because it was so exciting to pass those information on to young musicians coming up. And through that, Omar was 16 when he performed at the Shaw Theatre at the launch. He was still at music school in Manchester. Ken supported the launch of the BMA, which was at the Shaw Theatre in 1985. In fact, our conference was the same day of Live 8.
Well, my name's Omar. I'm a musician, and you're joining me in my studio. My father started off the Black Music Association back in the 80s. That's my personal experience of seeing how they encouraged and taught people how to learn about the business, basically, because you need to know more. You need to be more educated about what's going on and what's going down in the business, because if you don't, then it's not just about the music, a lot of people are encouraging in that sense. I think it's been good with all the youth schemes that they've got, encouraging kids to pick up instruments now and learn the craft, because it's not just about using computers and machines to make the music now. You have to go back to basics, and I see a lot of things like that happening. My brother works in a place called Granville in West London there, and I played with them youths a couple of times, and it's good to see enough talent coming through there.
My name is Faye Simon. I'm a jazz singer. I live and grew up in Harlesden and Wilson area. Right, for me, it all started here at Tavistock, which is where I had my first dance group. I was in my first dance group called the Little Shifters, and we used to dance upstairs. We used to do all our workshops up there, all our sessions. We'd done performances upstairs too. There were certain community projects like the Harlesden City Challenge performance that I was a part of. It happened outside in the car park. They had a big canopy and everybody came down. We'd done performances. I performed there with Kevin Mark Trail. and with Scratch Professor, who's Omar's little brother. I also remember doing a performance upstairs in the hall, which was one of my first ever performances outside of WAC for just my community, for an outside audience, and people today still remember it. So I know that it touched people, it affected people. It's something that brought the community together and something that they will cherish and remember forever, which is fantastic that I could be a part of that. There are so many good things and workshops and youth groups and centres that are around the area that help try and support the young children and even the adults of the community. Everybody can take something positive out of it.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Wesker. I'm a music editor at MTV Networks Europe, and I've lived in Harlesden in Brent for about 17 years now.
Well, the first question I'm going to ask you is, what do you think Brent has contributed, or the area of Brent has contributed to the development of black music in Britain?
Well, when I was working at a record company in the mid-80s, and I had a record to promote, the best pirate radio stations were in Harlesden. I wasn't supposed to be promoting there because they were obviously illegal. But there was a stretch of Harlesden High Street in which it was about 200 yards long. And in that 200-yard stretch, there were 3 different pirate radio stations. And I can't remember the names of them, but I visited them all, and they were really good people with really big audiences, and it was a really good way of promoting my music. And I've also had dealings with the legendary Jetstar organisation, who were based on Harlesden High Street. And also there have been numerous occasions on which I've had to visit the rehearsal rooms. I can't remember what the rehearsal rooms are called. Next to the Coliseum.
Oh, okay, no, I didn't know that one.
There's some rehearsal rooms and studios right next door to the Coliseum.
Okay, I'll have to check that one out.
And I've been to see loads of bands there. So in the course of my work, I ended up, even before I moved to Harlesden, I ended up spending a lot of time in Harlesden because there was always a lot of activity there.
Okay. Do you want to talk about Basil Bacon from Harlesden?
My wife was born in Paddington and has lived in Harlesden pretty much the whole of her life. She and her twin sister lived on Redfern Road in Harlesden, and they were in a lovers rock group called Prediction. And in 1981, I was working at Black Echoes, and a member of Prediction called me up and said, would I come and review a concert by the group? And that's the first time I ever met my wife, because I went to a concert by Prediction, and they were a brilliant lovers rock group, and I liked them so much I decided to manage them.
Okay.
And the first gig I ever saw them at was at the Apollo in Harlesden.
Okay.
And the second gig I saw was at the Coliseum in Harlesden, so
very local.
So I ended up spending a lot of time in Harlesden. Don't have any recollections of Andy Soyka's record shop.
Okay.
The first time I met Andy Soyka was when he had created Elite Records. But as far as I know, Andy had this incredible record shop in Harlesden. I don't know where it was, but it was a really important place to buy black music. And when he left that record shop, he created a record label called Elite Records, and they had an artist on there called Beverly Skeet, who I believe is local. They also had a duo on there called the Hard Rock Soul Movement, and one of the people in the Hard Rock Soul Movement is a guy called Dave VJ, who's now a DJ on Choice. And he still lives in Harlesden. You should definitely get a chance to talk to Dave VJ because Mastermind Roadshow, which was based in sort of Harlesden and Willesden, was for me it was the most important sound system to sort of establish hip-hop music in the UK. And when I started in the music industry, hip-hop didn't exist. And they were the first people, some of the first people in the UK to play hip-hop music. And the way they introduced it was they mixed it into soul music, which got people into hip-hop. So Dave and Max have been around, you know, since the early 80s, and you should definitely speak to them because they really know what they're talking about.
Hi, my name is Dave EJ. I work for London's #1 for hip hop and R&B, Choice FM. I have 6 shows. I do Monday to Friday, midday until 3, and then Sundays I do the old school show from 3 until 6 p.m.
Right, you've come a long way to Choice. So tell us about a little background because you've been around for a little while.
You're being nice. Okay, when I first started off, I used to work for a company called Lightning Records, and I worked my way up to be a buyer. Eventually, I hooked up with Mastermind, who were like the local big thing. And how I ended up going with them was because they had a lot of gigs and a lot of equipment, but not enough DJs. At that point, I didn't know how to mix, but I joined anyway. How we got into mixing was I went to New York and I heard something on the radio, a guy called Shep Pettibone, and he was blending records together, and I said, I want to do that. So what happened was I came back to England, and eventually when I hooked up with Mastermind, we didn't even have turntables to change speed with variable pitch. We just kind of did everything by hand. And the person that gave me the confidence to actually try to mix was Max, because he worked it out for himself that you needed to be able to slip cue. And what I mean by that is you need a slip mat, put the record on top, hold the record where you want it to start, and flick it to let it go. And Max worked that out. Now, we didn't know that at the time. That's what it was. But eventually we learned that it was slip cueing. So, you know what I mean? So Max helped, along with myself, to put mixing on the map with a few other people in this country. As time went by, we became local heroes because, as you can see behind us, Apollo, that is owned by Mr. Palmer, he gave us a shot there, and we played there for years, I think. I can't really remember. We just played there over and over and over and over. We got to the point where we all wanted different things, so me and Max broke away and formed Hard Rock Soul Movement.
You name check some of the acts or sound systems and stuff that you remember from this area.
Lord have mercy. Wow. Before Mastermind became Mastermind, I think they were called Conqueror. Let's see, who else have you got? My God, you're really making me dig back, and I cannot remember from around here.
Artists.
There's not a lot of
DJs.
Janet Kay was from round here, I think.
Yeah.
Like I said, Webby J, obviously, like, Feature's still around now. It's very hard. I cannot remember a lot of people. It's really, really hard.
Not to worry.
Yes, instead of playing those 3 videos before the last one, I'll probably just play one more so we can have more time to chat. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but before you do that, maybe you could say something about the segment that we've just watched.
Okay, so basically it was focusing on artists and movements in the area. So the guy you heard before was Dave VJ, an important DJ. And in fact, he was one of the early DJs on Kiss FM. I don't know how many people remember the original Kiss FM, but that was a groundbreaking pirate that became one of the early licensed radio stations in London. So they had a hip-hop session. Lindsay Wesker is important because in terms of TV, MTV Base was one of the channels that started breaking black music in the UK. And to have someone there like that, I mean, it did help. Let's say it did help black music. So there was a range of people talking. I've forgotten some of them, but so it wasn't just artists. It was people in the industry, people doing bits of different things. So probably the segment I want to show next is not so much about individuals, but about movements. I think it looks at sound systems and looks at power stations and looks at retailing. All these were pivotal in terms of promoting black music, and just all coalesced in Housden, Willesden, and that's why it's no mean feat to say that Brent or Housden, Brent is the capital sometimes of reggae. But as you heard from Daryl Washington, who passed away, I believe in 2020 or 2021, early days of COVID. So I think 2020, he was saying, "For this area is the capital of Black music." He didn't even say reggae. So yeah, I think that is a summary of what we've seen thus far.
Yeah, and you know, how did you select the people?
Right, that's a good question. Then probably I have to tell about how the program came about. When I live in Brent, and I've lived in Brent for many years, so we'll be walking somewhere with my wife, and I thought this used to be a record shop, or this used to be this record company, or this used to be so and so. And she runs the organization called BTWSC, and say, know something, why don't you do something about it and document it? So it really came from her. I mean, me just reminding of things, because obviously a lot of the shops have turned to something else. So I was just reminded that this could have been a record shop, or this was where a record company was, or blah, blah, blah. So thankfully, we went for Heritage Lottery funding, which we got. It can be tough, but we're glad we got it. And we put the document together, which obviously you've seen the video, but there's a booklet that comes to, I think it's here. I don't know if you can see, but because yeah, sometimes you can't see these things properly, but there you go. Yeah, so a booklet came with it. So we yeah, that's in terms of selecting, I think it was just my personal knowledge of people I knew and whose contacts I had, and I phone out people and say, we're doing this, let's get together. So obviously we can't see everyone in there. I think if I've got the DVD, I'm not sure if we interviewed like 30 or 60 people, but we interviewed as many people that I knew and who were happy to come on camera. But probably, if I'm watching this many years after it's done, and what I realize is that I'm sort of segueing according to what people are saying. So, for example, Lindsay Wasker was talking that you must go and see Dave VJ. So the next thing I did was that the next person was Dave VJ. So I was trying to put some sort of thread as much as I could, either because of what people were saying or some other element. So it wasn't just put randomly.
And had you done a documentary like this before?
Yeah, no, I studied filmmaking, but I have to say that I never practiced it, to be honest. I got so much involved in music business and left it. So I've done bits and pieces, but nothing like this, particularly something that was funded, so one had to put together. So no, I hadn't done anything like this before. But I might just add to say, because I'm about history, I'm not looking at, and I'm doing it for a particular community, and I'm doing it for a particular format, which was DVD. Sadly, DVDs for most people don't exist. They don't even have the machines to play them. But mine wasn't like looking for broadcast or whatever. So mine was to capture the moments. So sometimes when the cameraman was not around, I'll take a small video or whatever and capture the moment, because sometimes those moments never came again. I was just looking at the Dave VJ segment, and behind him is the London Apollo. That fascia has come down now. That fascia is no more. So the bits and pieces, I think I captured an image of a shop called Body Music, and that's the dying days. That was a record shop. As you know, record shops were dying in the 2000s because of the internet. So we captured the moments as we could. So it was nice to capture the signature of Body Music, and then now I think it's one of these shops where they sell blah 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 blah. But anyway, yeah, good question.
And how long did it take? You know, the research, the filming, the editing,
right,
and the publishing.
Yeah, it's funny for somebody that documents. I'm not great on my own documentation of my own stuff to tell you how long. But first of all, I got to tell you that whatever money it was the Heritage Lottery gave us, that we spend more than that to do this. The editing alone, because sometimes you want to do the project, so you get the money to do it, or else it wouldn't happen, because they don't give what is called full cost recovery. Full cost recovery is getting everything that you spend. That doesn't happen. But because you want to do the project, for example, the editing alone, the film and editing, that costs more than the project, but you want to do it, so you did it. I did a decent booklet, and I had to squeeze in stuff. Because there's so much information, and even this is running out 68 pages. And that I squeezed in a lot of things. So the photos were small and were black and white because of money. We couldn't do the color. So I can't tell you how long it took, but what I would say is that however long we budget for in the proposal, it took much longer than that. However much we budget in terms of money, it took much more than that.
And also, maybe you could say something about Beacon Records, and also, yeah, are they still around?
I should say something about what?
Beacon Records, are they still around?
Oh, no. That's one of the, I'm glad you noticed that. You know, that's one of the early independents that went by the wayside. Either the guy died or he left the UK. So no, but what I can say is that about 10 or so years ago, someone put a compilation. That was the first time the records had gone onto a CD. So someone compiled a compilation of, I think, about 20 of their tracks onto CD. No, they're not around. In fact, that place has been redeveloped. So I think somewhere else in the DVD, what's his name? Roger St. Pierre. I don't know if he still writes, but he used to write for a magazine called Blues and Soul. He was the PR for Beacon Records. So we are on the pavement of where the record shop used to be, but it's now, I think, some council flats.
And the Black Music Association, are they still?
Good question. Sadly not. In fact, my organization is called Black Music, BMC, BritishBlackMusic.com, Black Music Congress. And that came about because BBM, which was BMA, Black Music Association, which became BMI, Black Music Industry Association. Because what happened was that when you say Black Music Association, people just assumed that it was only for Africans. You know, I don't do black in terms of ethnicity. So we renamed it BMI. That meant that it was about Black music industry, not so much about African people. But sadly, with a lot of these organizations, when funding gets withdrawn, they were funded by Arts Council, and there was a whole lot of politics, and the budget got withdrawn, and the organization collapsed. But because I got much involved in it, I started the BMC, Black Music Congress. The idea being that I thought I could do a lot of what they were doing on the internet, because that was the beginnings of the internet, 1999, 2000. So it died, but I started BMC to do some of the stuff. Many of these seminars, because I used to do a lot of seminars with them, and the newsletter, and I thought I could use the internet to replicate some of what they did. Sadly, that I think 1995.
And what are we watching next?
Yeah, so I thought I'll go for the video that looks at topics like, as I said, sound systems, pirate radio stations, or people might say community stations, and I think retailing. So we'll look at that. And then the last one will be the one that covers a mixture, and also it ends with Cleon's father. Then Cleon can take over from there. Okay, so I'm going to share screen and look for the right video. So this is Robo Ranks, a local DJ. I think he was one of the DJs on radio BBC One Extra.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about those that you remember.
I don't like the way you like to know about so much history, because you kind of put me in an age bracket. But community stations where some would have said pirate, but community, there was so many. I mean, I was inspired by all of them. There was no one particular station that I listened to and I said, yeah, this is I didn't affiliate myself with any, but every one of them were great. And there was, I mean, so much talented people came from the community stations who went on to do television. Rihanna went on to do like LWT, Crystal Rose. There's so much talented people. I mean, there were some of the female people, but you know what I mean? Gamma Speng in the TV, Westwood, all these people done come and they had to rise from Alston, you know what I mean? There was DBC, which was the first, which I remember, and that was my first experience of listening to pirate radio station, was DBC, which was owned by Rita Marley's family, the Marleys them, you know what I mean? So they stamped their first You know what I mean? The Marley thing, yeah, Miss P and all them people in Labrador Grove, you know, it's a broadcast run. You had a few more. There was Stonebridge Estate was a station that was running hot at the time, Traffic Jam. You had Fresh FM, which was in Alsden. You had Time Radio up this side of Alsden. Fresh was over there, Time was over there. JBC, which was down there, so the whole thing was, you know what I mean? It was a thriving industry, you know. It was industrious people. Every club was full, you know. When these stations used to put on, every party was full, every club was full. These people was really industrious, so there was a lot of good stations. I mean, now there's, you know, you have Unique, the Beat FMs, Roots, Revival, all doing their thing. But I mean, the business is not as prosperous. I don't know if the belief is still there, if people still believe in the stations. That's why I may use the wrong word, but I don't know if people believe it. But at the same time, there's still a lot of people on there putting in a lot of hours for the community. But I just think that there's, when I say belief, I think maybe the community and the stations are not as tight as it used to be. Because don't get me wrong, there was a lot of mischievous people who used to run the radio station and do mischievous dances. And you know what I mean? Tell people that so-and-so is going to be here tonight. And when thousands of people turn up, they know so-and-so was there. And the people, them kind of, a lot of that happened. You know, it happened over like, you know, the 10 years, and it kind of beat the confidence out of radios. But I mean, now at the end of the day, they're doing what they got to do. They're playing music, so you know what I mean. Big up all the freedom stations, you know what I mean. All the pirate stations and whatever, you know what I mean.
Okay. Well, you're on legal station. Did you ever rise through the community? Did you do any community radio yourself?
I didn't do any community radio. I just worked for the people, and that was working on pirate stations. And I always used to fight my cause and bang the table about legal stations because I thought they don't do nothing for the people. They don't get into the community. They don't help the community. They don't aid the little man. They don't aid none of the, you know, that was the thing with legal radio station. But yeah, you grow to understand that they're commercial and they're gonna make their money and what have you. But and they never seem to have wasn't active in the community, whereas the stations around the area were active in rising the food shop, the hair salon, the barber shop, you know what I mean, little black businesses, the little businesses what we did have in the area. You know, now, you know, business is not good all around, whether it's food here, you know what I mean, solicitor's office, whatever you're doing, business is not good all around. But you know, I always had a dream that, it wasn't even a dream, I didn't dream about it, I knew that's where I was going to go. I knew that it would, what I'm doing, it would serve a purpose on legal radio. So I'm doing it now. It wasn't a dream. I never took it as a dream. And to anybody that's out there who's doing the community station, don't look at it as no dream. It ain't no dream. If you want to get there, you get there. You don't dream about it. You just do it. You know what I mean? So we're there doing it, and you know, we're serving a bigger community now. I'm not just serving people from Brent. I'm serving people from Scotland, Wales, Newport, Stockport, any port, you know what I mean? All about, you know what I mean? You get some crazy people email you who are just now getting into the music, and they say, listen, I've listened to your show once and we love this music. They've never, you know, probably the only thing they ever heard was a Bob Marley Legends album, which they had for 10 years, but they've never heard of Mr. Vegas, they never heard of Mavado, they never heard of Chucky Star, they never heard of Sun Cycle, and now they're getting in tune to music now, which they never had the chance to because of there was a big void in national radio stations and commercial stations in playing reggae. So, you know what I mean? But as go back to the point, the community stations are still there, they're still alive and kicking. They're still community based, but we just need to have some more belief. I think people, that means the presenters got to say things that are believable. Do you know what I mean? They got to talk things that are believable, that will connect with the people of the area. You know what I mean? It's no point having a station and you say you're serving the community, but you serve only one area of the community. You know, people can't believe you. So you got to connect with everybody. And there's so many different people that live in this area. And Brent is not just only Jamaicans. There's Grenadians, Antiguans, St. Lucian, Dominican. There's a whole community of Caribbean people. You have a large African community here, Nigerian them, Ghanaian them. So it's a community, so you have to serve the community. And if you start thinking like that, and that's my advice to any of you guys, if you start thinking like that, then maybe it will grow. So.
You got the pirate stations, Unique FM, Beat FM, a lot of stations, and they're doing very well for the artists as well.
We start off the pirate station actually, so there was nanny. You know what I mean? I mean, when you think about it, was only like Fresh FM. I mean, like Time Radio and JBC, and I think Time Radio was out probably about 6 months before JBC. Then you used to have another one down Labrador Grove called, I can't remember the name of that one, but that one wasn't big. But I want to tell you, Time Radio was the biggest and still the biggest pirate station ever. And I tell you what, it was so famous that we used to have people from BBC, ITV, everyone used to come down and interview us. And you know, want to know how we do, how we get out this sound. And I'll tell you what as well, BBC Radio and all the other little radio stations around used to listen to Time Radio. Used to get ideas from Time Radio because we used to have the best radio show on here, the best DJs, the best programming, and they have to change. We said to ourselves, okay, then let's start live by the law now. You know what I mean? They promised us that if we close down the station, they can think about giving us a license. And I remember we keep a farewell dance. And, you know, we keep a farewell dance, and I mean, we decided to keep a farewell dance in about 2 days' time. And we get a venue called Anson. I think a lot of you will know about this building in Brent called Anson Hall in Cricklewood. And we keep it 2 floor, and 2 floor, I reckon it can hold about between 2,500 to 3,000 people in 2 floor. And we advertise it the Wednesday, and the Friday it was absolutely solid, jam, rock. After we do the farewell dance for Time Radio, about 2 weeks after, we were bored, because that's what we know to do. We know nothing but pirate, you know, and the activity, and you know what I mean, and wherever we used to be famous, and we're just sitting down there not doing that. We say, yo, listen, we're gonna do another pirate station, but this time we're gonna call it Fresh FM. You know, and we just decided, so we're gonna do, I tell you, man, listen, in less than a month, Fresh FM was one of the biggest pirate stations in London. I was bored out of my mind. I said to myself, because at the time we didn't know anything about pirate. And we said, we come together again, me and my partner, and we said, come, let's set up another. He said, another station. And I said, yeah, man, let's set up another station. And we set up a station called Irie, London Irie FM. No, what was bigger than London Irie FM? Well, you know. And that was like a big, big, big pirate station. You know, so, you know what I mean, I've been there and done it. Brent alone right now, I think you have something like 6 pirate stations.
Well, this is the inside of the studio of Live FM, a local community radio station, a legal one. It's been going for about 3-4 years on the web, an occasional RSL license for monthly broadcast. Now it's got a 5-year license to broadcast on the FM dial. So come April 2007, Housden, Stonebridge and the surrounding areas will have a new legal radio station, Live FM. Check out Kwaku's program with Miss Sarah doing community programs.
Was the centre for reggae music in Great Britain on a whole, for Birmingham, Manchester, because everybody used to come down to Housden to get their records, to do deals. And at that time, you had like so many record shops. You had Starlights, you had Jet Stars, that's Mr. Palmer. You had Arrowhead Records, you had Archive, and several other record shops were in the area. And at one time, standing up in Arrowhead Record Shop, so many artists used to be crossing the road. It was unbelievable. You see like Gregory Isaacs and Dennis Brown, Delroy Wilson, Frankie Paul. And at that time, people were going by their everyday life and didn't realize that these artists was crossing them. Then you see guys walking across the road with record boxes. And at the same time, you see vans pulling up, because at that time, you used to have, people used to sell records from out the back of their out of their vans. So you get different vans coming to Harsden, and it was a great thing to see. I used to love that, and being in the music business, it was a pleasure just to see that and to know that I'm part of that.
Okay.
You know?
What would you say are some of your recollections regarding music activity in the area? I don't know whether record shops, clubs, or whatever.
Well, at one time, all the record shops, especially on a Friday, on a Saturday, guys used to leave work and you'd actually see the record shops packed out. People are outside and in the record shops actually buying records, where today you don't really see that.
I owned a record shop in Church Road, 219 Church Road, in the 70s. And I think Brent had more black record shops than any other borough I know during the 70s and 80s.
Times gone by.
Oh, they were beautiful days. They were absolutely, I mean, when you used to go on the high street, go to Brixton, and you bring 100, 150 records of a good single, in space of half an hour, it's sold. But the business has changed tremendously. I don't know why. There were times when I used to really enjoy going to Harsden, which is the mecca of black music, in terms of black record shops. And I still every now and then enjoy going to or visiting these places because they were responsible for the promotion of all kinds of good music that never been able to get airplays on the wide media, the BBC and all the other stations. But the shops were responsible for promoting that kind of music, good music, into the media.
There was so many good record stores. When these record stores were not only people coming from out of the area, coming into the area to buy records from these stores. These stores was also really key in developing labels in Jamaica. Some of the best labels like King Jammies, there's a few other labels I could have mentioned. Techniques, Winston Riley, big, heavyweight reggae labels that were done a lot of their business. They made a lot of their income came from the sales of records that were sold in stores in Harsden, you know what I mean? And these stores were significant in distributing their music.
Tell them the developments or issues with retail in the borough.
Well, I mean, it's not even a borough thing. I think it's a worldwide thing now. You know, you've got, with the dawning of the computers, you've kind of got people burning and copying and downloading music. You know, the days when we used to send our little Saturday money to Jamaica and get the latest pre's are long gone. Somebody just logs onto the computer now and just downloads, put a CD in it, and he's up and running. So consequently, I think we was, I know we was sort of one of the businesses that suffered. You know, we was in the market in Wembley for many years, for about 16 years. And circumstances, we had to move from there to Monks Park and was there for about 3 years. But, you know, in hindsight, possibly when we left the market, we should have just got out of the business then. If you talk to people who's in the business now, they'll tell you that not only the reggae industry, but music business in general is taking a severe beating at the moment. So, you know, it's the computer age, the death of the society. So we just got to roll with it.
Right. Just if you can remember, do you remember the years you were in Wembley and the years when you came to Monks Park?
Roughly. I think we was in Wembley from about Lancelot Road from about 80, somewhere about 86, 87, and was there for about 17 years. So that would put us 86, 96, just about 98, 99 around there. And we left Monks Park, we was in Monks Park for about 4 years. So, you know, that took us up to about 2003, 2004. So 2004, we're just coming up to 2 years since we've left Monks Park.
Okay.
Thank goodness for that.
I'm the proprietor of Starlight Records. We've been here over 30 years. Harsden has been the main source of reggae music from the beginning, really. But we have Trojan House, which is, you know, where the courthouse is now. That used to be the Trojan building, Trojan House. So that's where it all started, really. And this shop used to be a part of Trojan, which was the retail side, called Music City. So we used to do the retail side, and Trojan House used to be the production side of it, you know.
So I took over the shop after Trojan went into liquidation years ago. So my cousins and my two cousins and I, we started up as Starlights. Music is not selling like before. I mean, for instance, if a new release used to come out years ago, we used to more or less ask 25, 50. Now you can't. You can take a 5 and hope that you're going to sell that 5 to get another 5, you know. But that's how it is really. It's not like first time. Very, very hard. You know, I mean, I'm fortunate in the sense that I do own the building, so it helps me. It takes a lot of stress, you know. We don't know how long the music is gonna, what direction it's gonna go, because they got the iPods which you can contain hundreds of music at one time, and so the kids them know they download and they burn and they do what they have to. So you know, it's not as fruitful as it used to be.
Okay. Shops may be closing. Just a few yards from where Vasco used to be, now there's a new shop that's open called Urban Beats Media. It opened in 2006, March.
We grew up on Trojan sound system because they had the record company and they had the sound system that used to play over in a place called Burton's in Cricklewood, and that was sort of our main after hours rave on a Friday night. But you know, you had sound systems like Success, People Sound, Lord Coos. These people played a very significant role in development of sound system, and even before that you used to have, like, our parents, they used to have their sound systems and little shubbing. So there's always been major activities in Brent.
We used to have sound systems over here called People's Sound, Treasure Isle Sound, you know, lots of Trojan Sound, Sputnik, lots of original sounds, man. The big man them, my parents' age, who came over in the 50s and set up their sound systems, and that was their way of communication.
About sound system. Sound system has played a major part in maintaining street cred of reggae music. Things that happened along the line. Many of the things that happen in reggae music or the backbone of the music is the dedication of these sound systems. They sacrifice their life, their family, and everything to keep the reggae music going. When the average man is bringing home bread for his kids, the sound system man is bringing home dumplings. So they are very important for us to remember them in our dealings. I come to the commissioner again.
DJ Mr. J from Soul Incorporated Roadshow. Started the sound in 1976, based in Ravensworth Road in Kensal Green. We're outside the Moonshine building. It was one of the places where I came many years ago and put on some of our first gigs here as well. I think we're standing in a very sort of focal point here. I mean, over there to our left-hand side, we had Soul Incorporated, started in 1976. And if you go over to this side as well, you look at Mastermind Roadshow, also one of the best sound systems, I would say, to come out of the UK. We're just not only talking about the two sort of soul sound systems as well. Over that side, basically, you've got people like Java, High Power, and over towards Harlesden, like Hawkeye International, Daddy Ernie, etc. I think the contribution for black music is major. I'm going back really in the 70s when a lot of people didn't have a lot of money. And basically the sound systems were built on virtually nothing. You know, we're talking about building speakers, buying amplifiers, buying turntables, putting it all together, buying a van. And I think the contribution is major. I think if you take away the sound system and the promoters, technically we'll be living in a different era now. I mean, basically a lot of black people in this area look for the weekend, look for parties to go to, clubs, etc. And the promoters play a big part in that. So much going on. Used to have Tavistock in Harlesden. They used to put on gigs every Friday, bring in the sound systems, Java, Hiatus. They used to bring all the sound systems down as well. So there was so much going on in this little area. I had two brothers. One was in Mastermind, one was in Soul Incorporated. Both more into soul, but I think one of the biggest highlights for me, I think in 1976, I think Herbie Laidley came back from America and actually told me about hip-hop in 1976 and told me this is a new way forward, 2 decks, mixing. And I think that really inspired me not only to get into rap, but to actually get more into the sound systems and look at mixing. And I think we were one of the few sound systems, soul sound systems, that used to play. There's another sound called Stateside Roadshow. Yeah, another sound, more over sort of Wembley side.
You've forgotten 6x6, I believe?
6x6, yeah. Phil Fear on 6x6. Before my time, 6x6, but I think my brothers always told me about 6x6. I think 6x6 were based in Kensal Rise. And I think technically there's not a lot of people in the world, should know about Phil Fearon. Okay, Galaxy, Phil Fearon. But I think they were one of the original sound systems around here. They were one of the original sound systems. I remember years ago when my brother started Soul Incorporated, he sort of said, yeah, 6x6. That's the ones we got to compete with.
Thank
you. I think we got a chance to cover retail, sound systems, and the third one, which just escaped me, pirate radio, community radio. Yeah.
Yeah. And before we go to the next segment, maybe you could remind me, when did you do these interviews?
I've got to look at it. As I tell you, I'm terrible with my own history. I think, just give me, I've got a book, so it's in a moment. Oh my goodness, yeah. I think it may be 2007. 2007, this was done.
2007.
2007, yeah.
Yeah, and building on the conversations and what we've just had, and also on the work that you've been doing over the years, what would you say has been the effect of the internet on pirate and community radio stations, record shops, sound systems, and black music in general?
Okay, well, first of all, we know it decimated record retailing. So that's the first thing. And so young people don't know about HMV and Virgin Megastore and that kind of stuff. So the retailing side, that's down. I mean, physical shops. Obviously, people can buy things on Amazon and stuff. If you're an old like me, I prefer CDs, physical products, then you've got Amazon and stuff. So in terms of the other one, what else did you ask me? So I went straight to the retailing. What sound system? Oh no, radio. It's been good because now you don't have to wait to have, because the airwaves was very limited. You had to have a license to go on there. On the internet, it's unlimited. So anyone can start up their radio station today in their bedroom. So we've had a proliferation of web stations, which is fantastic because there's a lot of talented people or people who think they should be heard, who would not have had the opportunity in mainstream radio. So, you know, people are not watching, just like TV. A lot of people don't watch TV. A lot of people get their news and everything from the internet. So that's what the internet has done. The word democratization actually is true in terms of broadcasting. So people get up and do their own thing, not wait for IB. Is it IB or no? I think it's changed since. I'm being very old. But what you don't have to wait for someone to license you. You just go and start your thing. So that is the good thing of internet in terms of radio. Not so good for retail. What was the third one you asked? I think you asked about 3 or 4.
I asked about pirate and community radio stations, record shops, sound systems, and black music in general.
Okay, well, with sound systems, I'm not quite sure, but you know, a lot of people's sound systems may be on radio, so they wouldn't have been on mainstream radio, but now they've got another profile of being on web radio, so that helps them as well. I know CB is on here, so probably he may be traditional, but now sound system is not necessarily cutting huge speaker boxes. People come with their stuff on these small computer type stuff, and they've got thousands of recordings. Before, to show your cred, you come with your sound box, And you need the people to carry a sound box because you got a 7-inch or 12-inch. Now people have got everything, or maybe, in fact, people go to gigs with just a pen drive. See the pen drive in, and they're good to go. So that's not so much internet, it's was the computerization and what no. Well, with black music, I think it's opened, and now in our days, you could tell the number of black music, whether it's American and certainly not too many British black music that got into the charts. So when somebody got into the charts, particularly when people sold albums, to me, the important thing was albums, because singles did not really make money. So albums was there. Now it's changed. Now black music is running things, not singles as it was before, but albums. People going to number 2, number 1, the Storms is or whatnot. So I think the internet and the way they sort of tabulate the charts has changed. In the old days, right? Let's talk about Houston. You could sell thousands and thousands of records in Houston, and you're not going to charts. Why? Because the charts were tabulated from chart shops. And none of those shops in Houston and those areas were on the when you do statistics, were not captured in the chart statistics. But now the internet, any sale pretty much is recorded. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. And that's why we're seeing the trueness of the charts and a lot of black music coming through. The same thing happened in America. When rap was selling, but people thought rock was the big genre. But when they changed to SoundScan was using the internet computer to do it instead of somebody in a shop. And let me tell you how it happened in England. Before they started with paper, and then they'll telephone and say, oh, we sold 10 records of this. But people could put in false things. Then they added to what's called POS, point of sale. So obviously, you point of sale being the cash register. So if it scans it, it knows that it sold one of this record. So it's like a truer representation. So in America, when they went on SoundScan, which was computer-based, the whole demographics in terms of who was selling changed, because before they could falsify things and say pop, hip, what should I say, rock, and then found out that gangster rap and stuff was selling in masses. Anyway, I think I've rambled on enough.
Yeah, and finally, I think currently there's been a bit of a resurgence in record players and vinyl. Can you maybe say something about that?
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because interesting enough, with the BMI, I think, folded about 1995. And around that time, I remember the newsletter, we did something looking at the death of vinyl, because that is when Radio 1, which was the main pop station in the UK, they changed, and then they brought in CD players. So they were saying that they're chucking out vinyl. So everyone thought, oh, that was it. CDs, vinyl was going. So we actually wrote an article about the death of vinyl, but vinyl has been resilient. And as you said, indeed, companies that stopped manufacturing turntables have started manufacturing turntables. Some years ago, I did the British Black Music Month, and a father brought a young child to say he had actually bought a turntable for the child, and the child is now collecting vinyl. So I guess it will never go back to the days of the 80s and 90s in terms of volume. But it seems like almost year on, the number of vinyl being sold is increasing. But of course, I mean, it will never go to the good old days. But it hasn't died, and it may not die for a number of decades to come, one imagines.
All right, thank you. And what are we watching next?
Right, so we're going to watch the final thing, which what happened was that I think this was a bonus CD that we put together that it's 30 minutes. So it gave you a representation of the whole what should I say? Because the DVD was 2 DVDs. So if you didn't want to watch everything, you could just watch this, and it gave you a fair representation of what was covered. And I wanted to play because obviously I think the last person, then I did it obviously well before Sonny Roberts died. So it wasn't supposed to be something to do with Sonny Roberts' time, but just I I wanted to honor him. I met him a couple of times, and I just wanted to honor him. And sadly, he has since passed. So I thought, in doing this, let's honor him. So it ends with him, and then maybe we can have Cleon come in. So this is it.
Hello, the name is Kwaku. I'm the leader for the Brent Black Music History Project. What's this about? Well, it's a project funded by the Heritage Lottery. It's run by the BTWSC, a pan-London voluntary organization which is based in Brent. What we're doing is documenting black music history in Brent from the mid-60s, 1966, to the present, which is 2006. We're interested in artists, we're interested in producers, we're interested in buildings, we're interested in people behind the scenes, even pirate station operatives. So what are you going to see in this DVD? You're going to see some buildings like this old Zamba building, shops, including buildings that used to be shops but are no more. You're going to hear from artists like Slim Daddy, you're going to hear from DJs like Daddy Annie, and all the artists like Daryl Washington. The list is endless. Lindsay Wesker, who lives not too far from here, who works for MTV Base. Jetstar, there are people in Jetstar who are going to be telling us their aspects of black history in this area. Jetstar, by the way, is one of the biggest black-owned record companies in the world. So that's what you're going to get from this DVD. A little microcosm of black music history in the UK. Brent is the heart, I believe, of black music in the whole of the UK. And I'm happy to stand in the heart of Brent, which is housed behind me is the Jubilee clock tower there. Here, if you check out the DVD, you'll find out not everything, but enough to inspire you or others to pick up the mantle to do maybe bigger and better DVDs. You will also have a booklet, but I hope after reading our booklet, which will have photographs and scripts about what we documented in the area, you may go on to write a book, because unfortunately, there are hardly any books on black music in Britain. Music in Jamaica, music in America, we've got loads of them. But please show me books that represent black history in Britain. There's hardly any. So I hope this will be a catalyst for people out there like you to go on and do even better works. Thank you, and enjoy the DVD and booklet.
Daddy Ernie from Choice FM, London's only black urban music frequency, and I do a program called Reggae Super Jam. It's the only 5-day-a-week program on radio, reggae program outside of the Caribbean, and we've been doing our thing for 16 years. Well, when you say black music, I have to really home in on reggae music, and Brent has played a significant part in reggae music. Trojan Records, which was kind of the first black record company, along with Jetstar, they were the first two major labels, and they were based in Harlesden. Trojan was based in Neasden Lane, and Jetstar was based up in Craven Park. And sort of this has always been the hub of reggae music, even today. Yeah, well, you know, Trojan Records, we grew up on Trojan sound system because they had the record company and they had the sound system that used to play over in a place called Burton's in Cricklewood. And that was sort of our main after hours rave on a Friday night. But you know, you had sound systems like Success, People Sound, Lord Coos. These people played a very significant role in development of sound system, and even before that you used to have, like, our parents, they used to have their sound systems and little shubbing. So there's always been major activities in Brent.
Hi, my name is Hugh Francis, currently Head of Business Affairs and Intellectual Property at Jetstar Phonographics Limited, commonly known as the home of reggae music. I don't think Brent itself even realizes the contribution that it's made to the quality of people's lives indirectly as a result of the creative juice that allowed a number of brilliant UK musicians to have gone on from Brent to conquer the world. I'm talking about bands like the Cimarrons. I'm talking about Aswan. I'm talking about a lot of great performers who have gone on to America, the rest of Europe, Japan and other parts of Asia, back down in the Caribbean and particularly Jamaica, and of course also in Africa. That's a lot of people's lives that has been enriched as a direct result of the creative juice from Brent via those brilliant performers.
Hi, Slim Dutty, straight out of Harlesden, Northwest 10, Dutty fam representative, you know, musician, artist, producer, entrepreneur. So,
Slim Dutty, nice to talk to you, the heart of Harlesden.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We've just zoomed from that. One of your well-known tracks is Blood Puddles that relates its real issue. Just a few weeks ago, they had a peace march. Tell me about how that relates to music in the area.
Well, this area is notorious for the crime rate, especially the gun crime rate. The track I done, Blood Puddles, rather than glorify it, I wanted to reflect the negativity that the crime actually causes, and you know the way it affects not only the direct person but the families and the community in the area. So it plays a very big role on the general influence of the children in the area. So Blood Puddles was just a track that, rather than glorify the crime and the violence, just give another perspective of it from an outsider looking in kind of perspective.
Right. You live in Brent. Tell me, what do you think Brent has played in terms of the development of black music in Britain?
A big role, in the sense that a lot of artists, wherever they come from, if they're in America, if they're in Jamaica, they pass through Harlesden. Harlesden is like a music metropolis as far as London's concerned. Harlesden, you can walk down the road and you're guaranteed to see somebody that's doing music or somebody that is in the entertainment industry. It's very vibrant for that kind of thing around here. There's loads and loads and loads of artists from the area. You've got people at the moment like Gappy Ranks, who's big at the moment doing his thing. Redman UK, you got Sunside.
Don't lie, seriously.
My name is Paulette. I'm a member of the band Dazzle, formerly a member of a lovers rock band called Prediction. All the members of the band were raised in Brent. We were all either born here. Claudette and I moved from Paddington when we were very small, but we were all brought up and schooled in Brent. I made a list.
Okay, go ahead.
I know if I mentioned someone, didn't mention others, I would be crucified. Well, obviously my old band Prediction. Then there's a band called Dionysus, which was a roots band. There was another lovers rock band called Administrators. They went to our school. The most famous person from that band, his name was Michael Sinclair. He was in the charts. There's another band called Survivor, and the former member of Survivor went on to create this place in Stonebridge, which was called Rock Cut, where he was a big man to the rest of us, so that he got some money off the government and made this rehearsal studios where we could all go and rehearse, the younger bands and stuff. Then there was the ITEX, who became the Undivided Roots, who then became Rough Cut session musicians, who now play with all the Jamaican artists when they come over. Then there was Abaku, who was originally called African Women, and they were obviously for the name African Women, they were a roots women's band. Then there was a couple of dance bands, High and High Tension. High Tension we know became famous, but High was there before them. Then there was another band called Storm, and then there was Classic Black, Aswad everyone's heard of, and we had a singer in our group called Jackie Jones, and decided she didn't want to become a singer anymore, and then she got married to this guy called Errol Henry, who later on went to produce for Lulu. So it was all happening around here. It was all, it was buzzing musically, and we had loads of record shops. Every record shop had a record label. So we had Arawak Records, Blue Mountains, Orphatone, Freedom Sounds. Oh, I forgot my list. There's some other people. Danny D, Acid, John Kelly Guy, Longsy D, he did a Scar. That was a really big hit. He's from Willesden. Baby D, Phil Ferron's wife, from Phil Ferron and John Kelly Girl. And then I just did some, I've mentioned Jackie. And that's it really. Those are all the bands and that were about when I was younger.
Yeah, hi, I'm Paul Dawkins, one of the members of Tradition Band, and I'm here to talk about black music in Brent. Well, at one time, all the record shops, especially on a Friday, on a Saturday, guys used to leave work and you'd actually see the record shops packed out. People are outside and in the record shops actually buying records, where today you don't really see that. You'd pass like Staverstock, where we are right now. 7 days a week you'd hear a band rehearsing, and you'd pass in to see who's rehearsing, but someone was always doing something. You had groups like the Cimarrons, the Dab Rocks, the Concords, Misty and Roots, Tradition, and if I've forgotten anybody, it's just that there were so many bands at the time. Then you had Aswad. How can I say Aswad? I'm going to go way back from the 70s. That's when we really started. It was me, Tony Gadd, who's actually in Aswad right now, Brinsley Ford, and George Oban, we used to go to church together, and we started as young guys. I'm talking 15, 16, 17. I'm going down to rehearsal with George. I turned to George and said, George, I know it's a roots, what you want to do. I don't really want to play roots right now. I want to go into like Dennis Brown and sing that kind of lover style. I want to create our own kind of feel for here. So I left from there. We were still moving together as friends and family. And then I met up with some of my colleagues, Christopher Henry, Leslie McNeil, Tony Matthews and Paul Thompson. We all went to school together. And we started the band Tradition. Because I used to live in Easton, Brinsley Ford used to live in Easton, George Oban used to live in Easton, Tony Robinson, and actual Delaware as well. It was in a circle in Easton. I think one day I was at home and I got the call in my house that Bob Marley's in Easton. I said, you got to be joking. So I went down to Brinsley's house and Delaware Washington was there, and he said, look, come on, I'll take you guys round. And it was really nervous to know that these guys were there. So when we actually went into the house, I didn't believe that he was there at first. When we went into the house, there was Bob Marley, and he greeted all of us as he'd known us for ages. Peter Tosh was there, Bonnie Whaler, Family Man, and the whole group. They actually lived in the house for, I think, about 6 months, maybe more, to a year, they were there. So on knowing that we're there, me and Brinsley used to find ourselves down there now. We didn't without Delroy. We had to go just to be in around that man to say, well, listen, we know Bob Marley. I mean, we used to be jamming downstairs, and on one particular day we were jamming and Bob Marley was upstairs sleeping, and we was playing away. He actually came downstairs with his guitar and plugged it in and started to play with us, and to me that was one of the greatest times for me and Brinsley.
This gentleman is Teddy Osei, leader and founder of Osibisa. Black activity actually started with ska, reggae, in terms of music, and then eventually Osibisa came in 1969, and also start to build up the African influence, and also the culture influence, because Osibisa came in with wearing the African clothes, Bagan, and all that. That to portray the culture and the music, and I remember the first time Osibisa went on TV, Top of the Pops, we wore all the African clothes, whereas others were wearing suits, so. The next time we at our performance, we saw a lot of people wearing African clothes, which gave us a lot of pleasure.
Tell me about a little bit about the Courtney Pine connection, because I know he mentioned you guys, and indeed he said that's why he created that song, which was on his last album.
Well, the early days when Frank Tonto and Courtney Pine, they were in the same school. They were I would say they were in the same class in Kingsbury High. They became very good friends, and Frank used to bring Courtney to his Tonto, that is Frank's dad, to the house in Fairfields Crescent, and you know, I mean, they were listening to CBSI music. You know, they had pianos and horns and everything. They used to come there, and so they got inspiration. And you know, we also directed them, you know, if they want to get into music, what to do, and you know, a good old advice that we have to give them. And from then on, you know, they became good.
Hello, my name is Ruth Jackson, musician, songwriter, singer, director of Congo Music Publishing and Record Company. I've always had a long relationship with Brent from the first time I moved down from the north, which is Huddersfield, and got my first record deal in London as a duo called Ruth and Jenny Jackson. The company that we signed to was based in Wilden High Road, just at the junction by the traffic lights with Dutton Hill Lane. A company called Beacon Records, which is owned by a black Antiguan who lived in America for a while, and you know, I was very excited because to see a black person actually wanting to sign us, and the kind of music we were doing, which was like Caribbean soul, with a very UK twist to it. And he actually saw that and signed us up. That happened in about 1968. We signed the deal. And we moved down to London after we recorded the first single, which did pretty well for the company.
Tell me some of the developments that came out of the BMI or BMA being in this area. I know one of the most famous outcome is Alma, but Alma was on the Congo, which was working side by side with those organizations. So tell us a bit more about that aspect.
Well, BMA started off with myself and Byron Lifehook, Gaspar Lawal, Kofi Daku, and there's lots of other people, Charles Eastman, you know, KK Van Leer. That's what we developed to the BMA, you know, learning about the business side, bringing in the people like the PRS, the PPL, the MCPS, having seminars with those people so that they can explain to the members, our members, what the business is about. And that's what really, you know, fired me up to set up the BMA, because it was so exciting to pass those information on to young musicians coming up. And through that, I mean, Omar was 16 when he performed at the Shaw Theatre at the launch. He was still at music school in Manchester. Ken supported the launch of the BMA, which was at the Shaw Theatre in 1985. In fact, our conference was the same day of Live 8.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Wesker. I'm a music editor at MTV Networks Europe, and I've lived in Harlesden in Brent for about 17 years now.
Well, the first question I'm going to ask is, what do you think Brent has contributed, or the area of Brent has contributed to the development of black music in Britain?
Well, when I was working at a record company in the mid-80s, and I had a record to promote, the best pirate radio stations were in Harlesden. I wasn't supposed to be promoting there because they were obviously illegal. But there was a stretch of Harlesden High Street in which it was about 200 yards long. And in that 200-yard stretch, there were 3 different pirate radio stations. And I can't remember the names of them, but I visited them all, and they were really good people with really big audiences, and it was a really good way of promoting my music. And I've also had dealings with the legendary Jetstar organisation, who were based on Harlesden High Street. And also there have been numerous occasions on which I've had to visit the rehearsal rooms. I can't remember what the rehearsal rooms are called. Next to the Coliseum.
Okay, no, I didn't know that one.
There's some rehearsal rooms and studios right next door to the Coliseum.
Okay, I'll have to check that one out.
And I've been to see loads of bands there. So in the course of my work, I ended up, even before I moved to Harlesden, I ended up spending a lot of time in Harlesden because there was always a lot of activity there.
Okay. Do you want to talk about Basil Dakin from Harlesden?
My wife was born in Paddington and has lived in Harlesden pretty much the whole of her life. She and her twin sister lived on Redfern Road in Harlesden. And
Kwaku,
they
I think we've watched this
were
segment
in a lovers
before.
rock group called Prediction. And in
Okay.
I am Sonny Roberts. I'm a record producer. Started in Brent. 62. Opened up a liquor studio. I wasn't thinking of I could make myself any money from there. I go in there because I love music. Used to run a sound system. And I think, okay, I should make some record to play on my song. A lot of people earn off of me, get rich, and things like that. And it's very pleasing to see what I achieve from that. It makes me stronger to know that somebody can live off the things I do. The children can eat from it. But I didn't start to earn a lot from it at that time. But now, I think it's coming. Because I can feel it, I see, and I can see the honor.
Mrs. Sonny Roberts, in 2003, my organization called the Black Music Congress, we set up something called BMC Recognition Ceremony. And we honored some artists and people in the industry. In terms of people in industry, we gave the BMC Foundation Builders Award to 4 people. That included you. I gave it to Lee Gupto. I gave it to Chris Blackwell. To Carl Palmer. And to you, Sonny Roberts, because you are the foundation builders. Without you, I don't think we'll have our black music sector. So I officially want to give you this. Thank you very much, Sonny. Do you have a close-up? You deserve it, you deserve it, you deserve it. Thank you very much, Sonny.
Ladies and gentlemen, right now, I'm particularly pleased to have him here tonight.
Okay, Ambrose. That's it.
Thank you.
What I want to do first of all, if I could make Cleon a co-host, she's just gonna do a mini presentation of her father and Planetone, and then we can talk. So, Cleon, do you want to set yourself out? I'll talk to Ambrose till you're ready to do whatever you want to do. Just let us know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, is there any question or something you want to say whilst Cleon sorts herself out, Ambrose?
Maybe we bring in some of the people who are listening in if
Sure.
they've got any questions, comments.
Hello? Oh.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hello. Hi. Thank you very much for joining us.
Ah, yes. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Cleon Roberts. Yes, hello.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having
So,
me.
where do you want to start?
Where would you like me to start, from the very beginning?
Maybe. Okay.
Okay. Firstly, just seeing that video of my dad, that just really, really touched me. You know, it's and to hear those words when he said it's coming. I was just so overjoyed to hear him say that, and it actually is coming. And you know, just to see how delighted he was when he received that award from Kwaku, it meant a lot, an awful lot to him. So you know, it's just a joy to see that video. So yeah, I enjoyed watching that, and just to see how emotional he was. But yes, my father, the date, he actually said 1962, it's actually 1961. As you can understand, being interviewed, you know, sometimes you forget dates, but it was 1961, which is documented because we have the vinyl to actually, you know, to prove that, you know, he was cutting music from 1961. And he came. Do you want me to tell you basically how he ended up in England? Do you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes?
Yes,
okay.
please.
Okay. And so he was a carpenter by trade in Jamaica as a young carpenter. And then to further his skills, he went to Kingston. He was born in the country areas of Jamaica in Manchester. And he just thought to gain more experience, go to Kingston. That's where all the furniture makers were, and obviously, you know, being the city. But when he got there, he was distracted. There was a scene going on, i.e. the music scene in Kingston. So he just that was where he really, really learned his first love for music. And, you know, started to buy music, and you know, I suppose that's where he did his, you know, research, and got the call in Jamaica. You know, the national call was to come to the UK. So his aunt secured his passage, and he embarked on the trip on the Windrush. Well, not the actual Windrush ship itself, but you know, because there were other ships. So the ship he came on was a Manistee ship. So that was during the Windrush era when they made that call. And so he arrived in London, and ended up in Ladbroke Grove. And there he had embarked on other West Indians. And, you know, there was a music scene, found that there was nothing there for West Indians in terms of entertainment. But he when he came to England, he was doing carpentry. So, you know, he worked in a factory. But you know, when you're meeting everyone, and you're obviously trying to survive, and trying to make the best of a situation where you've got the bare minimal, and you've got to try and work with it, and plus conditions as well, because if you remember, England was bombed by the war. So there was nothing for West Indians then. So to supplement his income, he set up a sound system called Lavender, and then started to play at parties, weddings, funerals, and so forth. And it's quite funny, because since I've been sort of working on my father's legacy, as well as, the family legacy, the music legacy as well. I've come to sort of speak to some of my uncles and found out so much more of areas that he played the sound system. I've actually made recordings now of some of my uncles who were actually there to tell me what they so graphic about what the scene was and where they were playing, where Lavender Sound was playing, and the followers. So whilst he was playing at these parties, you were meeting musicians, and then that's when my dad realized that there was nowhere for these musicians to record. So he, through supplementing, just supplementing his income, just gaining more revenue, he saved and found premises, which was in Kilburn. And do you want me to go into where the premises were? You want me to?
You're doing fine. This is fascinating.
Yeah, because it's an extensive.
Please carry on.
It's an extensive amount of history.
Please carry on.
Relay of history.
Yeah.
So the building that he embarked on was owned by a man called Sikram Goptal, and who was a tailor, and he rented my father the space, which is on the ground floor. I thought it was a basement, but it's actually the ground floor as you enter. And Sikram's tailor, his business was on the next floor up. So my dad opened his studio, had musicians working there, playing there, and they were making music. But however, during that time, my father was doing private commissions, and one of those private commissions, he was making furniture for doing private work for people, and one of those commissions were for Chris Blackwell of Island Records, and that's how my dad met Chris Blackwell, and they became friends. They're common, both being Jamaican, obviously, they found a lot, they had a lot in common, so they became really good friends. And as months progressed, Island Records were based at Connaught Square in central London. And as Island Records were making more music, more musicians, because you have to remember there was a scene that was trying to be built in London. And when there's not much, the word spreads, and there were musicians and singers here who wanted to make music. So what was happening with Chris is that musicians were coming to the building, and due to racism, the neighbors didn't like it and informed the landlord, and musicians hanging inside the premises as well, not just outside. Chris was asked to leave. So just through talking to my dad and as you do, you just ask around, I've got to vacate. Do you know of anywhere where I can rent? So my dad suggested where his studio was. So he took Chris, and Chris said, look, yeah, man, let's go, and let me go and have a look. And they went, and Chris took it, and that's where Island Records moved to, and that was at 108 Cambridge Road. That's where the studio was. And so both companies were there working away. However, during that time, the man that owned that building, as Sikram Goptal, very, very famous name in music. He had a son, and his name was Lee Goptal, who was an accountant at the time. And again, you can imagine the scene. You're coming and going from work, and you're seeing things, because obviously you must be hearing music, and you must be seeing all this activity going on. And my dad said one day there was a knock at the door, and he saw this little short Indian man standing there, chubby Indian man standing there, and he asked to come in, and he came in, and was hooked, after sort of just, because there were instruments in the studio, and then there was, you know, a vibe and lots going on. And my dad said that, you know, Lee was in the studio coming and going and hanging around. And one day he said to my dad, "Well, look, Sonny, I really want to do this. Give me some records. Can I sell some records? I can do this." And my dad said, "You know, what do you know about the business?" And there's it's well known in the business, and my dad always said it, you know, a quote that Lee said to my dad, "If you give me SHIT, I can sell it." And just those words alone, just by saying that, it convinced my dad. And my dad said, "Okay, go ahead." And he turned out to be very, very good at it. And then my island were looking for someone, and my dad had introduced Lee to Chris, and then there you have it, Trojan Records. That's how they were formed, through that meeting, and you know, they were all in the same building together. So and then from there, my dad, you know, you know, it's an amazing part of, I would call it pretty much the Motown of UK black music, because, you know, artists that recorded and you know, I mean, since I've been, you know, working on my dad's legacy and the history, and I suppose because I've actually, because I live in Jamaica, so I've took it upon myself to be here for a few months to pick up on certain things and work on this. So I've been talking to people and finding out a lot more, and musicians, you know, thankfully there are 1 or 2 musicians that are still alive that actually recorded in that studio. So this is why I've been finding out this information, and to find that, you know, people like, you know, I always knew that Millie Small had come into the studio. I just thought she was just there to hang around, basically, because if you can imagine, Island Records are upstairs, so you know, it's more than likely that you are going to come into the studio. And apparently I've since found out that my dad was a very, very good cook as well, so that was another attraction why everyone was coming there. And so I've you know, Millie was in the studio, and that's where they rehearsed the song My Boy Lollipop, was rehearsed in there, and they laid down the track, and then, you know, obviously you needed a bigger studio to do the final recording, but the rehearsing was done there. People like Rico Rodriguez, the trombone player. Do you know of Rico? I'm sure you know of Rico Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of his first recordings was done in Sonny's studio. Planetone Studios was the name of the studio. A track called Midnight in Ethiopia, and that record has also been remixed by Trojan Records. Was it Island? I believe it was Trojan or Island. Don't quote me on that, but it was remixed again in the 80s. So you know, and there were people like Owen Gray, you know, coming and going, Ennis Ranglin, who came in there, Jackie Edwards, Dandy Livingstone, the Marvels, and also my aunt Nellie. Sorry, my aunt was a member of the band called the Marvels. And but before she was in the Marvels, she was brought to my dad's studio. This was in pretty much the beginning, in the early 60s, as a young girl. Her uncle brought it. Well, my dad had asked for someone to, you know, play the piano, and just to kind of fill in, and he brought her, and you know, she was very, very good at it. And you know, the rest is history. She pretty much ended up loving music and became good at it. I met the Dimple Hines, Danny Livingstone was there in the studios, and then later on she ended up in a group called the Marvels. So they were founded there at Planetone Studios. And then Sonny had closed the studio, And in 1970, because he closed down the studio, but he was still selling vinyl, so his love for vinyl didn't wane apparently. And but because he was into so many different types of music, because my dad used to listen to jazz, rhythm and blues, ska, mento, popcore, you name it, all different sounds. Because I'm a 60s baby. I grew up hearing these sounds, as a baby, and so I just remember so much vinyl and so many different types of music always playing on at the time in our house. It was a gram. And he decided to open up his own record shop. That was in 1970 in Willesden Junction in Harlesden. And but this particular shop, and I think just sort of watching, it was a specialist record shop. It wasn't a shop. My dad was into so many different types of music. He wanted this shop to be for world music, a specialist shop was selling all different types of music. And that's what it was known for. And I think from watching all the footage this evening that Kwaku had shown, and just listening to all the interviews, and that, I think that's why he wasn't mentioned, the shop wasn't mentioned, because I think it was a case that if you wanted a different, even though we did sell reggae, we sold a lot of reggae, but it was a specialist shop. And I think it was a case that the youths, the type of shop it was more for because it was a community shop. It was for the community, because, and then he started to sell one of the biggest attractions as well, and I do mention that in my talks, is that Harlesden had some major factories which backed onto it in Park Royal. And that is where a bulk of the record sales came from, because there were major factories such as Guinness, McVitie's, Walls, Heinz factories. I mean, those are huge brands. So these factories were huge, and they employed mainly West Indians and Africans. I used to be there as well. My father made sure that, as a child, I used to be there on a Saturday during the school holidays. He used to take me to the shop, mainly me, because my other sister's a bit younger than me. My younger sister is younger than me. So it was just easier, rather than to leave my mother with 2 children. So he would take me. And I think it was a case, I was so young back then, but I think it was a case, his plan was for me to learn the business. That was his goal, really. And I think because he had girls, so he probably thought, well, this one, yes, they're all women, but one of them's going to learn the business, and this is the one, and it was me. So I saw an awful lot. Oh my goodness me. I just remember seeing, with those factories, because back then there wasn't any connections in terms of transport connections, so you had to walk. So all these people from the West, for the Windrush area, the staff, who were all West Indian, and African, they used to catch the bus, and the bus stop was across the road from our record shop, and from there they would walk into the industrial area. And we're talking about thousands and thousands of Black people, going to these factories to work. Guinness, Heinz, Walls, McVitie's, working. But what what Dad did was, you can see it here. I don't know if you can see it there. That's a record shop there. So here he put a speaker box outside the record shop, and that was to attract There you go. That was to attract these factory workers to the music that he was selling. So it was just phenomenal, you know, on a Friday, a Saturday, especially Friday because it was payday. You know, these factory workers would come into the record shop and they would buy. I mean, it was, you couldn't even close the door. They were outside, especially Christmas time, Easter, when they had, and also there were lots of parties back then as well. No one's got. I don't know if people mentioned clubs, but every road in all these areas, you know, where there was predominantly black people, you know, Brixton, Harlesden, Willesden, you name it, Bristol, the people were having house parties, and that's where a lot of these record sales were going. So, you know, people were buying vinyl back then, not just a bag of records. People were buying boxes of records, and I remember seeing, you know, there were the hot tunes back then, you know, in the music in Harlesden, in London. The scene at that time was just, you know, if there was a tune and it was hot, people were buying these in droves, and you know, people were buying, like, in a box of records you'd have 25 records. I'm talking, you'd see customers walking out with 2-3 boxes. That's 75 records, sometimes 100 records. They come back and they say, you know, we used to have to tape it up, and they come back for it because they couldn't carry it then. So we put their name, write their name on it, and Mr. So and so, you know. And these were factory workers, you know, and they used their hard-earned money to buy records, and that was their comfort as well, especially back then, because there were no clubs that would have their, you know, they weren't allowed, they didn't want black people because they saw us as trouble. There would be trouble. So, you know, it was hard to hire venues as well. So what did you do? You have your own house parties. So, you know, with selling so much vinyl, that's where I had to learn the business, and we all had to help. As a child, you know, I was behind the counter, you know, selling records, and as I got older, I was actually playing records, you know, for customers on the turntable. I mean, I can literally put on I mean, even today, it's still in me. I could put on an album, and I could actually put that needle on a track, and it would start playing in the middle of an album. That's how my father trained me in such a way, and how to respect vinyl, you know, and to respect the craft, and that's how it was really back then. You know, and with him bringing catering to the community, you know, different, all types from the community, because it wasn't, you remember no blacks, no Irish. There was a big Irish community in Harlesden and Willesden, huge. So my dad was bringing country and western to cater for them, and then the African now, because my dad was in 1970. He was approached by a Nigerian called William. His name was William Amambala, like an uncle to me, and he had told my dad about a band in Nigeria, and said, "Look, Sonny, let's work together. I can't do this on my own, so let's work together and bring this band from Nigeria to London." And so he did. They did, and they did a few shows. The shows were literally sold out. I mean, they did really, really well. And again, because there was nothing for the African community. So my dad came up with the idea and thought, well, hang on a minute, I'm not going to send you back to that. Let's record an album. And so he did. And because it was a 9-piece band, you know, it's a case of you have to find the right studio for that. So he hired Chalk Farm Studios in Camden, and that's where they recorded the album. And the album it did really, really well. Sold, gosh, truckloads in Nigeria, in the UK. And then my dad went on to record 2 more albums with the Nkengas, and with that, the popularity of the album, other musicians had approached him, and then that's how he started to work with other African musicians, i.e. Peter King, Gwendolyn, oh, I can't put it, Ambole. He did distribution for him, for his records, the Rhythm Brothers, Tyrone, Teddy Davis, who sang Tears from My Eyes, which was, that was covered by UB40 in the 80s. So, you know, it was a case of, I mean, my dad, he wanted, that shop was the home of Black music. And because it again, yes, you know, hats off to what the guys were doing. You know, you had your Jetstar, you had your, well, so not so much Jetstar because they were a distributor, but you had your Hawkeye, you had your Starlight, you had your Body Music, you know, you had Peckins, but Peckins again. And I think because Peckins was more sort of specialist again, because they were, you know, your ska and you know, it's you know, it was, I think that's where for Orbitone it was a case of he just wanted everything to come together and bring that, and that networking and there in that shop, that's, if you were going to network for music and for business and to, you know, connections were made in that shop. A lot of connections were made. I mean, we had you know, I think it was Robert Ranks talking about, you know, how Harlesden was back then, you know, just vibrant and you know, a lot of successes musically were made in Harlesden. It was just, you know, to see, you never knew who was going to come through that door in your shop. I mean, we had people like Jules Holland, who was a regular in our shop in the mornings, and I remember seeing him coming in, because at that time, this was more when I was in my early teens, and I studied fashion design. I was always good at art and a creative person, so I used to watch the Tube and you know, Paula Yates. You know, she was an idol for me. And when I saw Jules Holland come into our shop, I was literally starstruck. And my poor dad, he didn't know who he was, you know, at all. And I was like, Dad, you know, that man's really, really famous, you know. And you know, he just kept coming and Jules used to buy rhythm and blues, and that's all he used to do, is to come early in the morning, and he would be in the shop for hours buying rhythm and blues and jazz, and like, you know, he'd just take them out and my dad would play them for him, and then he'd walk out with a box of records and so forth. You know, we had people like Africa Bambaataa come to our shop, and you know, again, my dad didn't know who he was, and there was me behind the counter saying, do you know who that is? You know, you know, it's like, oh my God. And I just remember him coming in, you know, and you know, with his entourage, and he's like, yeah, you know, this, I've asked, I want to hear the music from my hometown, and I want to hear from my roots, and because I think he's Jamaican, if I'm right. Kwaku, am I right? His roots are Jamaican? Are his roots Jamaican?
I know it's Caribbean. I'll let you know in a minute.
Caribbean, yeah. So he says, you know, I want to hear them by the music of my hometown, my roots. And it was just to serve him. And he didn't even just come in, he came in twice, in fact, and bought tons of records. Flavor Flav we've had come in. People like Five Star used to be a regular, because my dad was very close to Buster, the kid's father. So we used to have 5-star, you know, Lamborghinis pull out outside, and before you know it, you see some of the kids and stuff, and it was just amazing. Even we had oh, what was his name? I Got the Power. That song, I Got the Power. what they call again? They broke in Harlesden. Nobody talks about that. He broke in Harlesden. I remember him when he came, and he used to hang in our shop all the time. And my dad used to talk to him and mentor. Well, not so much, but I think it was kind of like mentoring him because, you know, and at the time people thought this guy was absolutely crazy, you know, because he had this American accent.
Are you talking about the group called Snap?
Snap, yes.
Okay.
He came from Harlesden. That boy, that guy came from Harlesden. He lived in Harlesden.
Okay.
And I remember, and you know, people just thought this guy is a bit of a quack, you know, he's got this, is this American accent fake or what? But it wasn't. And he rapped, and people thought he was, this guy can't be serious. And when he broke, and I remember when I saw the team, and I was like, you know, that guy, you know, it's Harlesden. You know, and it was just, you know, it was just an amazing time, and then, which even made our shop even more crazy, was the introduction of soca. And again, you know, Dad he just saw, I think because how we ended up in soca was, well, firstly, he was approached by a Dominican called, his name was Roy Alton, the late Roy Alton, bless him. And he wanted to, you know, he wrote his songs and just had so much. I mean, I loved Roy so much as a child. You know, all of them were my uncles, and Roy had such stage presence. And because, you know, I was artistic, and I liked fashion, you know, even from a child. I was always making things. So that was kind of my secret, my thing, you know, even though my dad didn't want to sort of push me in that direction. He was like, no, you're going to do music, you're going to learn the business. But I really wanted to do fashion. So when I saw Roy used to turn up in the shop in some outfits and everything. So he had so much stage presence and character. So and then you know, he talked to my dad about these songs, and my dad said, okay, this was in the early 70s, and took him into the studio, and they made an album called Carnival in Ladbroke Grove, and that was in 1975. And what's unique about that album is because it was, because you had Calypso, which we were selling, but my dad, I think because he had produced African music, and if you ever hear that album, Destruction by the Nkengas, you'll understand when you hear Carnival in Ladbroke Grove, because my dad's listening ear, his BPM was faster. So when he made Carnival, it wasn't Calypso, it was speeded up. So especially when you hear the track Tell Them, that track is a lot faster. So anyway, this album was selling really, really well in London in 1975. And then it brought the attention of a man in a chart called Charlie's Records. Do you know Charlie's Records? Charlie in New York. And I remember it so vividly because, again, I was there. And so I just remember, you know, when Charlie phoned my dad, and my dad, you know, because it's not even so much just in the shop. You have to remember, it's you know, you take your work home with you. So I can hear these conversations in the house. My dad's talking to my mum about this, you know, there's this man in New York, he wants me to do this, and you know, he wants me to partner to license some music for him. And so Charlie came to London and said to my dad, look, you know, I love this album. This is what I want to be doing. This is what we're going to be doing. This is what is going to happen. This is how Calypso is supposed to sound faster. So in the States, Trinidad, they started to speed it up, and that's how you had soca. That's where the sound came from. That's how it started to get faster. And so Charlie had given my dad some musics to release, to distribute and license. And these was records like Sugar Boom Boom, Give Me the Ting. We had first release of Hot 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 by Arrow on first release. You know, Lorraine, I mean, Lorraine by Explainer, I mean, that is an anthem, a Trinidadian anthem for Trinidad's. And the basis of that song is it's not just a tribute song, it's a call out song to console Trinidadians, because that's another story that people don't talk about. There was also a call for Trinidadians left Trinidad to go to New York. And again, for them, conditions and just being away from home. And that is what that song talks about. And that's the basis of that song. And that was, Lorraine was written to console Trinidadians who were living in New York, and you know, the missing home, to go back home. So anyway, these records, you know, soca, my dad just broke soca, and I think what brought the attention of bringing the sound men to our shop, it wasn't just for reggae, it was to get their soca records. That's how we got them in the end, because Dad had licensed a record called Sugar Boom Boom, and that record, that's when the sound men started to play soca. You had reggae men, you had even people like your Ernie's, you know, you name it, they were playing. Rodigan, they were all coming to the shop. Can I have that record, please? Sugar Boom Boom, you know. And I think the reason why that record took off so well in the UK was because it was in the reggae dance, that was, you know, to liven up the dance, you know, and that's when and then they noticed all the women were kind of dancing to it, and you know, you hola man, and you know the actions of soca, so it kind of livened up the dances, and that's how soca music really started to break through Sugar Boom Boom. And then with that, you had your DJs coming in, people like Lord Sam, you know, the great Lord Sam, Martin J, who you know broke, and you can ask Martin that, you know, my dad sponsored Martin and gave him his first break in soca, and helped Martin to break his career in soca. So you know, and then you know, it was just, that shop was just quite something else. The people coming and going, your Gladdywax, your Smoky Joes, you know, all those people, your JB International used to be in the shop a lot, you know, hats off to JB. Ernie was in the shop a lot, you know, my connection with Ernie, bless him, you know, I love Ernie to death, you know. But, and again, it was a case of, we all networked as well. That was the other thing. The respect was there. You know, Roy from Hawkeye, Jerry from Hawkeye, Starlight, Desmond, Ben Up, you know, all of them. They're good. Desmond is my sister's godfather, you know, from Starlight. So we all, Mr. Palmer, you know, we all and I think that's what the success of Harlesden, the music business in Harlesden, was. When you went to Jetstar, it was like, oh my goodness me, it was like you go to Jetstar and you'd be in there for hours, and it was just people chatting and networking and talking. Joy, you know, Joy Ellerton, bless her, you know, she was like the sister of Jetstar, and because they made you feel so welcome, and you know, people used to just, you know, bring their new records, and you never knew. It was just it was so exciting every time you went to Jetstar, you know, just to see what's coming through the door. And you know, then Mr. Palmer had this little deck at the back where he'd start to play the music. It was just phenomenal. It really, really was. You know, and excuse me if I've forgotten any of the record shops, you know, but there were loads, and not just shops, there were record labels, you know, forming as well. You had your Drive as well, records. You know, it was just an amazing time. It really, really was. Yeah. Hello.
So I don't know if anyone who's listening in has got questions.
Yes.
Yeah. If you've got a question, if you unmute yourselves, you can ask your question.
Okay.
So my own question for you is, when did you first become aware that that your dad was into music, and how was that experience for you?
When he had the shop, because it was because again, being a carpenter, so he built the shop. Inside the shop, all of his premises, he was very, very hands-on. And I think just seeing all the vinyl and just, just watching from what he created, because you remember as a child, I used to be sitting, he used to carry me everywhere. Believe you me, he did. I mean, I didn't have a childhood, to be honest. I'm a bit like Michael Jackson, I'm afraid. I think that's why I'm a big kid now. I didn't have a childhood. I mean, Saturdays, I was at the shop. After school, I was at the shop. And then the other thing is that I used to go to piano lessons on a Saturday afternoons, which was on Tubbs Road, at the top of Tubbs Road. So he used to cross me across the road. And then also I went with William Umbala, who partnered with my dad with the Nkengas. So we used to go to piano lessons together as well, and that's another history in itself. That's something that you need to research, Kwaku, actually, because that's a phenomenal part of history. Miss Wilson, who was a Jamaican woman who used to teach, that was at the Church of God and Tubbs Road at the top. There's a church there. I think it's Ethiopian Center now or something. In the basement there, she used to teach hundreds of black kids classical music, and then we used to take our exams at the Royal College of Music, and it was just a phenomenal time. I mean, you can imagine a coach, how many kids, how many seats in a coach, and Miss Wilson used to, sometimes there were all 2-3 coaches of black children, and she used to take us all to Trinity College of Music in Baker Street to take our exams. And that was a whole day affair. So yes, my dad's work ethic and determination gave a lot of respect to him. That's where I really, really respected it and looked up to him a lot. Believe you me, I did. Yeah.
And this is my final question before we go to Colin. And how did you work with, how you were interested in fashion?
Mm-hmm.
And your dad said, no, you look like a fine musician. You look like you were made for the music business. How did you...
Never to sing. Oh, no. Never to sing. No. And I think the reason why it was to just learn the business and just watch what he's doing. But no, he never wanted us ever to sing. And my actually older sister, she did a bit of singing, and when she cut her first record, my dad was not happy at all. He really wasn't. And she joined, she ran off to South London and got into the lovers rock scene and made a record called, she joined a band called Sister Love. And my sister sang the vocals of Anniversary. It's Our Anniversary. So that's, my sister is the lead in vocals, but my dad, he was not happy about it at all.
Why is that?
Only when the record started to sell, though. Then he kind of changed his tune. But he was like, don't make this a habit, And I think for him, he just, seeing the especially a little later on where marijuana sort of came in a lot more, I think he the scene of the studios and sort of his experience of seeing the environment of recording studios is like, not my daughter, not going in there. Not with all them men for hours on end and late at night. So no, I was strictly for the business.
And Colin, you had a question. Thank you, Cleon.
Yeah, greetings. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, it's just to say I've actually got to go. I'm actually hosting a Zoom at 9 o'clock, so I'm coming off straight after this. But just to say, firstly, congratulations, or well done, Kwaku, on an excellent documentary. I actually don't think it's been surpassed yet. I don't think anyone's made anything as comprehensive as your documentary. Yeah, I know you said it was it's just a catalyst for anyone else to pick up the gauntlet, but I don't think anyone has as yet. So yeah, well done. And I think it's a very important document, historical document that you've captured. Yeah. Cleon, you know, I've got a Lovers Rock exhibition on, and you've never mentioned the fact that your sister was part of Sister Love, who are part of my exhibition. I don't know if she joined later, or was she part of the original lineup, or did she join later?
The original lineup. So the song, I think Anniversary, was that their first song?
No.
So was it Family Love?
Family Love, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Family. All right. Okay, Family Love. Right. So that would be with what's that? Frederica Tibbs and probably before Frederica. Anyway, let me move on. Yeah, I mean you've given us a great insight into listen, I've not heard half of the stuff you've told us. I mean, and the passion that came out. Really a lot of history this evening. Wow, I mean, I'm just mind blown. Firstly, by rewatching Kwaku's documentary and then hearing your story of your truth, what you saw. Yeah, amazing stuff. And you've got to document. You've got to document as you have this evening. You've got to properly document that, because it's not out there in the way that you've put it out there, especially when people are name checking record shops and whatever, maybe from a sound man's perspective, but you gave us a different insight into the population that your father's record shop was serving. And I think that's so important. The other thing that you mentioned that I think doesn't get talked about enough, sound systems were not the biggest purchasers in terms of volume. Volume came from virtually every home had a sound system, in terms of every man with his hi-fi, thought he had a sound system. Yeah, so he went out and bought, and what used to make me laugh as a sound man is that when they thought that their hi-fi could play in a party, there's something that they bought from Tottenham Court Road or wherever, top hi-fi, and then it would overheat in the party with all the body heat in there, and then they'd have a fan, or they try and cool down the amplifier as a cutout, whatever. But it was the volume of people they don't talk about. I mean, most of what I've seen in the narrative that comes out is that this sound or that sound, but no, it was like literally, as you said, all those factory workers, their pride, and the pride that you used to see when you were invited to a house party, which there were more house parties than there were ever clubs. It was all written primarily about house. In my teens, I would go to like 6 house parties in one night.
Yes.
Get what I mean? We gate crashed. That's how it was. I mean, we used to say that we were the decent gate crashers, because sometimes we used to carry X amount of bottles. So we'd even, so they welcome us in because we're bringing a bottle. You get what I mean? So and we were smartly dressed and whatever, as opposed to and well behaved. So yeah, we got into lots of house parties.
As long as you carried Baby Sham.
Well, we went through phases. There was Pink Lady, Wicked Lady, Pomaine and all them. But growing up, it was Baby Sham and Cherry B. I mean, my dad used to work for Whiteways, so we had an abundance, and I've got all the labels of all the drinks from the factory that my dad worked at. So my dad was actually a factory worker. Yes, Kwaku. One thing I didn't say, and I haven't really, I've remembered, but I haven't associated it with your video, is that I was actually approached to be a radio DJ on time radio.
Okay.
So I had to turn it down because I work for the government. I couldn't be on a pirate radio at that time. So my first foray into radio would have been when time radio was in its heyday. So I remember going into the studio and whatever, and I just said to my DJ partner, I can't go on to time radio, but you can.
Okay.
And so that's what happened. So I was approached to go on to time radio, but I couldn't take up the offer. So he went in my place, and then, for him, then took off and then went on to other stations after that. But the whole, all what I've heard tonight is really, it's just warm, and we've last day of Black History Month, so it's all quite nice and interesting and very warm. And it's nice to hear this. I think people are running with a narrative who weren't there, and to hear something that you've gone against the grain, and Kwaku's video goes against the grain. So I just wish somehow you could make your video more widely available, Kwaku, because there's a lot of important information in there in your documentary that would correct a lot of inaccuracies that are out there. And Cleon also, with your own testimony, to correct a lot of inaccuracies, a lot of things that have actually been written by supposedly authoritative people who weren't there, and have put a lot of misinformation out in the public domain. And you guys, can do a lot to correct a lot of the wrong information that's out there, and even from people that were there. People always champion their ends as the first to do this and the first to do that. And as a historian, which Kwaku is, and me now getting into documenting history, music history, and looking at the chronology, I'm starting to unpick some of these things and challenge and show people actually you're not quite correct in what you're saying there. And I can show you that this shop or that label was before yours or whatever, and you present the evidence, and because everyone thinks that wherever they were at that point in time, that was the first, the biggest, the best, whatever. And you just say, well, yeah, actually that's not quite correct. So I think from a historical point of view, I think the work that you guys are doing is phenomenal, and thank you for sharing your story, Cleon, and Kwaku, thank you so much for making that documentary. I've had it from it when it was originally released, and to watch it as a group tonight. There were bits that I didn't. I think sometimes you watch something and you learn something new every time you watch it.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's what I got tonight. And then with Ambrose, greetings, Ambrose, long time. Again, it was with Ambrose getting you to talk, and so we were pausing, and then analyzing bits of the documentary. I think that was a very useful way of presenting it. What I would say is, if we could have participated when you were breaking down, so let Kwaku do his piece, and then at that point, I would have liked to have joined in with some of the way you broke it down, Ambrose. So that would have been nice if we could have intervened at the points when you broke, and let Kwaku say his piece, and then perhaps let us come in. But it's been a thoroughly enjoyable session. As I said, I've got to start my own Zoom in 3 minutes. So.
Can I just interject there? One of the things I completely forgot to mention is the amount of well-known Alex Pascal. That's somebody that doesn't get
Well, he's in my book. So one of the things I made sure is
man for what he did.
Absolutely. He interviewed Bob Marley. So he's got to get a mention in people say, oh, this person was the first. That was one of the reasons why, even though I've done a Lovers Rock booklet, it was important, and Alex Pascal wasn't really known for Lovers Rock, but it was important for me to list all the DJs chronologically when they started playing reggae, and Alex Pascal was one. I couldn't leave him out. And he's such a gentleman. Such a gentleman.
A lot of those DJs were always in the shop. Steve Bernard, Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I'll put it. Yeah, thanks a lot, Colin, for that. Much
Yeah, I
appreciated.
must go. As I said, I've got to start a Zoom myself
No,
now.
fantastic for your contribution. Thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Good night, everyone, and
Yeah.
hopefully we can do this again soon.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Colin.
Night,
And
Colin.
yeah. See you soon.
Yeah, I'm mindful of time, and Cleon was supposed to do a mini presentation. We're grateful for what she's given us, much more than we expected. But I thought I'll just make some links. This is the shop, and the reason probably why it's not mentioned a lot is that the project I did was called Brent Black Music. It wasn't necessarily about reggae, but it just happened that most focus was on reggae. So the focus was on reggae. And Cleon's father's shop up into wasn't a reggae shop. As she said, and I think it's important to know, it was a black music shop. So it covered all types of things. It's a shame you can't see the top because it will tell you the type of music it covers. It might even have had Irish music in there, if I'm not mistaken. So that's why people don't tend to remember. It was on the far side of housing as well. This is Church Road towards the Wilson High, so Wilson Junction Station. So it was on the far end of housing. Most of the shops were on the Craven Park Housing High Road side. So that's why it's off the beaten track, but it was also not your typical reggae shop. Having said that, to be honest, a lot of the reggae shops also sold other types of music. But his father's shop was known for things like big people's music. It's a shame you probably didn't mention Judy Boucher. Obviously, they got as far as number 2. But you had, I've even forgotten the names, what we call big people's music. There's a lot. There you go. People like that, so middle of the road type of stuff. So, but there was an audience for it because there's a guy who was in the video that you may not know of called Ray Williams. He did some big people's music. Oh, Dimitri is not the.
Yeah, hold on a minute. I'll be back in a second.
Okay, wow. I'm sure Dimitri is going to take an album or a record. Yes, I worked with Ray, and it was big people's music, but there was an audience for it. There was an audience for it. So I just want to show you a couple of things that I got online whilst you were talking. This you probably haven't seen. This is an image that was sent to me after I did the booklet, and this European band sent me a photo of the Shakespeare. Look, the Shakespeare is 106. So that's next door to 108. So I think they said.
Here he is.
Yeah, I remember him.
Ray Williams. Yeah, I worked with Ray Williams. Man, Dimitri, you're a serious anorak. Yeah. Thank goodness he's still alive. Yeah, so the Shakespeare was where the people from children, and I'm sure Ireland used to go to have drinks. And this band actually used your father's studio, Planetone. It was a sort of British R&B band. And so, yeah. They were unpacking after having used your father's studio. So it wasn't just R&B and reggae or whatever. People use it for all types of music. That's what people don't know. So this band, if I'm not mistaken, was called, I'm sure it's there somewhere. I forgot the name. But anyway, the guy that sent to me was called Stan Pinder. And he was telling me how they went into the record shop. Sorry, your father's Planetone Studios to record in there. Then I was going to show something. Ambrose, we'll close in a minute, but I just want to pick up a couple of things. Yes, so, by the way, Africa Bambaataa has got Jamaican and Barbadian parentage.
Oh, thank you. I knew it was Caribbean.
Definitely Caribbean. So this is probably not the version that your father produced, but this is Rico and the recording that you mentioned. Okay, like what is it, Amazon or Apple? I can only give you 30 seconds of it. But yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of recordings that was done in Planetone, and we're blessed that people like you are preserving it, and it's coming to the online space for people to rediscover. So I'm glad that at least I'm glad that you realized. Oh, actually, there's another part of the DVD where we show your father being emotional, but that wasn't what was shown today. He
Yeah, I'm
really
glad
was
you didn't show that actually.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I mean, I had to console him, but I think he needed it, and I'm glad that you or your mother said that he got an award in Jamaica, and that's the only one that he was coaxed to go and get it, but at least he was recognized, because with hindsight, I didn't even recognize, even though I did this over 10 years ago, how much he had done. Because I wrote an article for the Weekly Gleaner, but I don't know if they published it. I said, although you're from Jamaica, he wasn't just doing the typical sound system or record stuff. He recorded people from the continent. He recorded Afrobeat. He recorded different styles, big people's music, released soca. So he did a lot, and I'm glad that lately he's got some recognition, and with your effort, more people are going to recognize what they, because you told us a lot, but I'm sure there's a lot more that you'll be able to tell in your own document.
I think what meant a lot to him was he was honoured along with Toots Hibbert, of Toots and the Maintail, they were both given Lifetime Achievement Awards together. So, and that was 3 years before he passed.
Okay.
So he was just so honoured. That really, really meant a lot to him. Right. And it was, quite a big setting, and to be honoured by the minister as well, the Honourable Babsy Grange. So
oh, great.
At least, because some people said to me, "Oh, it's such a shame that he's not here to see all of this." And I said, "Well, he knew what I was going to do. We spoke about this."
Okay.
I think. I hate to bring it up, but I think my dad felt very, very misread. The Trojan documentary really upset him.
Okay.
So I said to him, I said, "Dad," and he said, "But they didn't even mention me. They didn't even credit him." And I said, "Well, I'm going to put that right."
No, you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. As we're about to wrap up, I think everybody, at least Dimitri showed me his record, but Joy, are you able? Oh, no, I think Joy can't say anything because the microphone doesn't work.
Before Kwaku, I think Dimitri wants to ask something.
Okay,
no,
go ahead,
I just wanted to show Cleon this, because I actually went to her father's shop, and for some reason I've still got an old bag.
Wow.
Which sort of shows all the sort of styles of music that he sold. It starts with UK top 40, dance, soul, reggae, gospel, soul, Afro, zouk, country and western, jazz, rhythm and blues and merengue. So
right. So it didn't say Irish music, but it certainly said country and western, which was a genre popular, or which was popular among Irish people, and some were African Caribbeans as well.
A lot of Irish people, and it was the Irish, that made Judy Boucher's record a hit.
Okay.
As well. Yeah, the Irish used to buy that record a lot because it hit in Ireland as well. Yeah, it reached the charts in Ireland. I just remember them coming into the shop. Can I have that record? And yeah, they love that record.
No, I think all they didn't get to, number one, people must realize that we look in the 1980s where, without having Radio 1 support, it was hardly possible for you to get into the top 10. And to get that far on an independent label, not a major label, an independent label, that was an achievement. That was a great achievement.
You know what was stopping?
Yeah, Madonna. And that's Warners with all their money.
La Isla Bonita, that song.
Yes,
funny, I remember saying to my dad, I said, "Dad, this is going to be really hard," because when I heard that song by Madonna, it was not.
No, but it was a lofty position to get to for a small label in Houston without major distribution and promotion. He did well. He did well. Okay, Ambrose, I think you probably want to wrap up.
If you don't mind, Cleon, I've got just two final questions, and then I thank you again for the time that you've given us.
Welcome.
Yeah, and my first question is, from what lessons would you say, people growing up in Britain today, either Black people growing up in Britain today, or people who are interested in music in general, what lessons would you say they can learn from the life that your father lived?
Community, just to work together. You know, it's just believing in yourself. That's the other thing, and don't go always go against the grain. You know, if that's what you're good at, stick at what you do. You know, and just keep going. Just don't stop. That's the advice I would give to anybody today, any musician, any young person today. Just to keep going and to believe in yourself and community and network. Yeah. You can't do it alone. You just can't. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is my final question. What are your hopes?
What are
your hopes?
My hopes in terms of myself or just my father's legacy?
In terms of yourself and also your father's legacy.
Okay. In terms of myself, it's just really to give the story, because it's not just my father's story, it's the people's story, it's history, it's Black history, music history. Everybody loves music, and I think my hope is to really get that story out there and to do a good job with it. You know, that's what I'm hoping for, and then also, you know, maybe a foundation would be great, to give back to musicians and to give back to young people, because right now, you know, so many young people, they have no hope. They really don't. And there's not a lot out there for them to channel it. You know, yes, the government and you know, there are entities that are trying to assist, but then if they don't have leaders and people that care and that can pave the way for them, because that needs to be channeled by the right people as well. So that's what I'm hoping for. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I give to any, you know, young person.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cleon. Thank you very much.
Mm.
Over to you, Kwaku.
Yeah, Ambrose, thanks a lot. It was just occurring to me that it's been obviously, in fact, to be honest, I told Cleon, I saw her presentation. So I said, do just 15 minutes, sort of, you know, a glimpse of what she'd done. Although she didn't do a presentation, I think her oral presentation has been great. And she said more than we had expected. Even Colin, who's been to presentation, did say that he learned quite a bit, you know. So I think because it was a bit conversational in a way, you touched on things that you weren't doing by your presentation. So we've heard some new stuff that we wouldn't have heard before. So I thank you for that. And I think, Ambrose, I'm looking at those that came previously and who didn't come this time. And then those that booked for this who didn't come this time because they have missed out. But the good thing is that you decided for us to record it. So we'll put it online for other people to come and check it out at their convenience. So it's been a good evening altogether.
It
so
really
thank you.
Kwaku,
Yeah.
I just want to say as well, just by I think what kind of spurred me on is when I saw the footage, because I've seen little bits, but I haven't seen what you showed tonight.
Okay.
And just seeing some of the guys that I remember and what they were saying, and I thought, my gosh, you know, I need to add to this. I need to put a bit more input as well. You know, some of the things they were saying were great as well. But I thought no, and it just started all to come back to me as well. What Harlesden was like back then. It was just electric. That's all I have to say. Especially when was it Dawkins?
Paul Dawkins.
Paul Dawkins. He said you would see Gregory Isaacs, Dennis Brown. You'd see stars crossing, coming and going, and that is true. That is true. You couldn't get into some of these record shops. They had to the doors were open, people standing outside, you know. And in our shop, we just had to trust people because, you know, they wanted had piles of 50 records. So, you know, it was just crazy. It really was wonderful though.
Right. as Ray Williams was saying, he'll go and buy records, and it could be however many, and they'll be stored in the space of a few hours if it's that hot. But since this has been recorded for historical correctness, I have to say that DBC, Dread Broadcasting, did not start in Ladbroke Grove. People know of it because they ended up in Ladbroke Grove, but it actually started in the shed in Neasden, which is in Brent.
Yes.
They mentioned the Marley brothers, the Anderson, which is
Michael Williams.
yeah, Michael, and he tries to correct that. So he worked with what's his name, Leckby and people like that.
Rankin Miss P and Lepke.
Absolutely, who were in-laws to
Rita Marley.
Rita Marley's siblings, and then in-laws to Bob Marley. Yeah, so it started in Neasden. So let's get that correct. Yeah. Later on, it obviously transferred to Ladbroke Grove and came bigger. So yeah, on that note, I think it's been a great evening. I've enjoyed myself. Cleon, it's been a difficult time, but at least on 31st October, as they say, the last day of African History Month, we did do this, and you're smiling, you're engaged, and so it's been a lovely evening and informative. That's the whole point. To me, if I'm not in a learning environment, it's a waste of time. So we've learned quite a lot, and that is the whole point of this. So thank you, everyone.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Ambrose. Thank you, Dimitri. Thank you so much, Kwaku. Bless you. Thank you.
Okay, safe journey as you go into your sitting room or your bedroom. Right, bye-bye.
Thank you.